Vallabha Girivaradhari Rasodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jayam Vishnupaya Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Ashtara Shri Srimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Rajagranta Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Samveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Nitya Ego Nandi All glories to the Son of the Bodies, all glories to the Son of the Bodies, all glories to Shri Gauranga. O Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. O Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. O Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're going to do the word-to-word meaning. Yesham, of whom, Kalu, indeed, Mahayogi, a very highly exalted devotee of the Lord. Bharata, Gyeshta, the eldest, Shreshta Guna, qualify it with the best attributes. Asit, was, Yena, by whom, Idam, this, Varsham, planet, Bharatam, Bharata, Iti, thus, Vyapadi Shanti, people call. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The translation of Rishabh Dev's 100 sons. The eldest, named Bharata, was a great, exalted devotee, qualified with the best attributes. In his honor, this planet has become known as Bharatavarsha. Purport: this planet known as Bharatavarsha is also called Punya Bhumi, the pious land. At the present moment, Bharata Bhumi, or Bharatavarsha, is a small piece of land extending from the Himalaya mountains to Cape Comorin. Sometimes this peninsula is called Punya Bhumi. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given special importance to the people of this land. Bharata Bhumi te halya manusha janmayar Janma Sataka Kari Kara Para Upakar. Quote, one who has taken his birth as a human being in the land of India, Bharatavarsha, should make his life successful and work for the benefit of all other people. Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila, chapter 9, verse 41. The inhabitants of this piece of land are very fortunate. They can purify their existence by accepting this Krishna consciousness movement and go outside Bharata Bhumi, India, and preach this cult to benefit the whole world. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Agyantamirandasya Viranjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vancha Kalpaturubhyashta Kripa Sindhu Yadevacha Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So yesterday we were hearing about how Rishabdev, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, spreads his influence. And he personally incarnated to Dharma Samstarpanataya, to reestablish the principles of religion. Particularly, yesterday was talked about Varnashram. And today we heard that he married one mother, Jayanti. Of course, that became his wife. And then they had 100 sons together. And today we're hearing about the eldest of those 100 sons. His name was Bharata Maharaj. So he's described in this verse as Mahayogi, which means a very highly exalted devotee of the Lord. And also, Shrestha Guna, qualified with the best attributes, as is expected of a very highly evolved devotee of the Lord. And due to his wonderful qualities, the earth planet became known as Bharatavarsha. So that's pretty, talk about fame. The whole Tribhuvana, or the three worlds, refer to the earth as Bharatavarsha on account of the good qualities of one individual. So that's pretty amazing. So it used to be that the whole earth planet was called Bharatavarsha, but now just the little land of India is referred to as Bharatavarsha. Prabhupada says that sometimes this peninsula, India, was called Punya Bhumi. Maybe sometimes back then. I don't know if we can be so confident to call it Punya Bhumi now. The types of things that are going on across the planet, including India, it's not the holiest of activities. But here he mentions that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is given special significance to the persons who take birth in Bharatavarsha, India, because there are so many advantages in taking birth in India. Even today, even with all the westernization of India, still, there are so many advantages to taking birth in India. The one advantage is you have a false ego that already identifies with Vedic culture just by taking birth in India. Outside of the bad education that is coming that makes a person think that their culture is useless. That's kind of going on today. But just the natural birth, you have a false ego that identifies with Vedic culture. I remember traveling with Revatinandana Prabhu, and he used to keep his cart of books, his big bag, like a travel bag for when you go on Sankirtan, huge. And he would have pictures of Jagannath all over the cart. And so that would naturally catch some eyes, some attention. And he would chant Jai Jagannath while pulling the cart in the hallway, transferring from the red line to the blue line. It was a little embarrassing, but I learned to get over it. And I remember one time, one Indian lady saw that and said, "That's my God. That's my God." And then Revatinandana Prabhu responded, "That's Jagannath." He was very eccentric. "He's the God of everyone." And she looked at him and said, "That's my God," like that. She was pretty adamant. So he said, "All right," whatever. So like that, just by taking birth in India, you have a false ego that identifies with Vedic culture, deity worship. That wasn't something very weird. In America, I don't think you have, first of all, they don't talk about God, their own God. We'll just speak of Jagannath. And to see Jagannath, most of us wouldn't have a false ego that identifies with Jagannath as a Supreme Lord. So even the form of Jagannath is quite interesting as opposed to the form of Radha Krishna or Sri Sri Gaur Nitai. So this is our disadvantage, having taken birth outside of India. So this is one advantage. Prabhupada speaks of other advantages is that persons in India who take birth in India, they will naturally identify with the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, or at least certain principles like reincarnation and etc. won't sound so awkward on account of that birth in India. That's another advantage. In America, just to try to describe something like the soul becomes quite challenging these days, even on a university level. I often mention my story of being at DePaul and a person telling me that a helium balloon was conscious. I mean, first I argued that the car wasn't conscious, and he said, well, how do you know? And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I felt defeated just at that point. What do you mean, how do I know the car isn't conscious? Well, it doesn't have any life, it doesn't have any awareness of itself or the awareness of others. No, I think it's conscious. And then he said, just like this helium balloon is also conscious. Oh, really? Wait, what year are you? University? How much are you paying? I said, well, what is your evidence that the balloon is conscious? He said, when I pop it with like a pinprick, when I poke it, it pops. That was his evidence. And I said, I feel bad I didn't bring any prasadam, That's the only thing that will be able to help you at this stage. So but Prabhupada would often mention, even a village boy in India will be able to understand the principles of Bhagavad Gita. Even a village boy. That's another advantage. Another advantage is that in India, there are so many sacred places. So many places that remind you of Krishna, that remind you of the Supreme Lord. In the Western world, there's so many places that remind us of our sinful activities. Just to move about, even in this neighborhood, Oh, I remember when I was, because there's some scars are there in the heart. And when they come in contact with other substances, those samskaras come out. So, we have many sinful samskaras. So we come in contact with a very sinful environment, those samskaras are brought to the surface. And we find it very hard to think of Krishna. You want to go for a japa walk, right? And everything is reminding you of sinful activity. That is the Western world. But in India, even in the cities are quite demoniac in India, in my personal experience. And I think the opinion of many others also. But still, in India, so many temples will be there on the corners. At least they have murtis everywhere, even the taxis. All the taxis will have Ganesh murtis. All the taxis have Ganesh murtis because they want to make money. Please remove the obstacle to making money, or whatever. Things that remind you of Krishna. You can still see pictures of Krishna everywhere. Their stores are often named after the Supreme Lord. Like that. That's another advantage. So many advantages in being born in Bharatavarsha. And they will have a culture that is still based on a semblance of the original Vedic culture, the rituals, the types of etiquettes they would follow. That's, of course, going down thanks to the influence of, looking towards the West. But you see, many Indians who will even come to our temple now, if you talk to some of them are even atheists. They don't really believe in God so much. But because the culture was like that, I must go to a temple, I must offer my respects, I should bring some bhoga, like that. These are advantages. So to take birth in India is considered a very auspicious birth, generally. So Prabhupada's pointing out here in the purport that Mahaprabhu gave specific significance to the people of that land, that they should Bharata Bhumite Halya Manusha Janmahar Yar. That means, first of all, birth as a human being in that land is very important. Taking birth in some other species might not be as auspicious. Like, for example, a dog in India, that's not as auspicious as a dog in America, right? The dogs in America, they dress them up nicely, a poodle with a coat on, a fur coat, So ridiculous. And, they, brush it up very nicely. They pick up their stool after passing. It's like amazing. Sometimes what's wrong with taking birth as a dog? Sometimes we may say, if you make your consciousness like a dog, you get a dog body. So they say, what is wrong with that? In America, they don't see much problem with that. So you have to qualify it. You'll take birth as a dog in India. Then okay, I understand. And I should take this Krishna consciousness very seriously. Because dog in India is not auspicious. So Bharata Bhumite Halya Manusha, taking birth as a human, being in Bharatvarsha, that's auspicious. Definitely as an animal. Of course, still, even animal birth in Bharatvarsha, it can be auspicious because you hear the holy name vibrated, especially the animals at the dams. Like Braja, you see all monkeys, particularly, and the hogs. Prabhupada said actually in previous lives they were sadhus who probably committed some sinful activity. So they took birth again in Braja. And by rolling around in the Braja Raj, the dust of Braja, they'll get purified and go back home, back to Godhead in their next life. So that's pretty auspicious. But if you take birth as a dog in like New Delhi, then that might not be as auspicious. So anyway, the general idea is birth as a human being in Bharatvarsha is nice. Janma sartakakari karapara upakar. Having taken birth in such a land, one should make that birth successful by taking Krishna consciousness, and then oneself, and then after that, para upakar, distributing that Krishna consciousness to others. So there's a general principle that Prabhupada likes to quote a lot, given by Chanaka Pandit. Sannimite varam tiago vinashte niyate sati. This means that everything that we possess in this world will certainly be destroyed. Vinashe. Vinashe will certainly be destroyed. Our so-called beauty, our health, our wealth, our intelligence, our minds become weak. Everything will be taken by force. So if you're intelligent, if you're a knowledgeable person, then you should renounce those possessions or renounce them for your own pleasure, tiago, and contribute them to some higher cause. Sannimite varam. You should contribute that to some higher cause, some better cause. Because anyway, you would have to lose it. So if you don't contribute it to some better cause, not only will you have to lose it at the time of death, but also those possessions tend to be sources of misery when you don't contribute them to some better use, right? Like the body, the intelligence, the wealth. All these things actually are sources of misery. They cause hankering, fear, and lamentation. So if you don't use them from some better cause, not only will they become a source of misery for you, but they will be taken away from you at the time of death. But if you contribute it to some better cause, you can become elevated to the spiritual platform even. Just by using that same wealth, which would be a source of bondage and misery, you contribute it to the right cause, and it becomes a source of freedom. That's amazing. So Chanaka Pandit makes this point. Sannimite varam tiago vinashe niyate sati. Many places. A good example of this is in the Bali Maharaj pastime, when Shukracharya is telling him, don't give the wealth to Lord Vishnu. So to that, Bali Maharaj responds, well, anyway, the Supreme Lord will come as death and take everything away. Isn't it? What is that from Bhagavad Gita? Mrityu Sarvash. What is that? Mrityu Sarvasham. Krishna comes as death. Huh? That's one of his forms. May not be so transcendently pleasing, but is one of his forms, death. And in the form of death, Krishna forcibly takes away everything. So Bali Maharaj is thinking, Supreme Lord has personally come face to face. So why not I just offer it to him now? Since anyway, in his other form is death, he will forcibly take away. But now he has personally come face to face. So if I offer it now, then I can be supremely benefited. This is my good chance. Good chance I'm having here. So that's a pretty good argument. Anyway, Krishna will take everything by force at the time of death. But if he has personally come before you in his beautiful form, why not offer everything to him in his service? So this is the idea. Whatever we may possess, it will be certainly destroyed at the end, so we should offer for some better cause. So what is the highest cause to offer to, by which we can ourselves benefit, and we can also para upakar, we can benefit others? And the highest cause that everyone can appreciate unanimously, this is the key point, a cause by which everyone can be happy. Because oftentimes we may contribute to a cause that is not beneficial for everyone. That is oftentimes the case in the material world due to the false ego, the strong identification with one's body. We will contribute to a cause that is beneficial for me or my kinsmen, but it is great misery for others. Just like, for example, the advancement of technology. Who really gets to benefit from that technology? A few people around the world, while a lot of people get to suffer. The loss of their resources, their children have to work in these heavy factories, so many lives are lost, etc. So what is a cause that one can contribute to by which everyone can be happy? That is, a most intelligent person will contribute to that particular cause. And that understanding for us is to, parupakara means to give life to the living entities. This is interesting, give life, I'm trying to develop an idea here. I only meditated briefly on it, but I'm trying to develop it here. The life is very mysterious, even for the scientists, right? What is really the cause of life? They don't know, right? The cause of life, of course, we say is consciousness, right? Life of the body. Life is quite mysterious. I was reading a poet. He said that we have learned how to make a living but not a life. We've added many years to life but not life to years. So this idea of life is a little bit mysterious. So we know that the life of the body is the soul, right? That's what we say. That's our philosophy. The life of the body, or we can say the life of the body is consciousness, because a body without consciousness is a dead body, right? So the life of the body is consciousness. And what is the life of consciousness? Because consciousness alone is not sufficiently satisfying, right? Even aruhya krichena parampadam tata patantyada anandrita yushmanangraya. Srimad Bhagavatam says even someone rises up to the platform of Brahman, where there's consciousness, you're just conscious. But because of not being conscious of something satisfying, like Krishna, anadrita yushmanangraya, then they fall down from that platform. So just being conscious is not really life by itself, but it means what are we conscious of? That determines our life, right? So when a person is conscious of the body, then what is his life? A materialistic life, right? And when he's conscious of, let's say, principles of spiritual life, then his life looks a little bit different, right? So it's not just consciousness alone. It's like we say the life of the body is consciousness, but that alone does not determine life. But what we're actually conscious of, that actually determines the life, right? So then, just like the life for the body is consciousness, what is a life for consciousness? Yeah, devotional service. Priti. Love is a life of consciousness, right? Priti is actually a life of consciousness. So, so much so that Srila Prabhupada describes that this priti can be found even in the tiger, right? Even hard to believe, but I have a video somewhere, I think it's on my Facebook, I showed it to some students many years ago, of a lady who had rescued a lion when he was in the forest or something, and she placed him in the zoo, and she went and saw this lion like 6 years later. So there's a video of her walking up to the gate of the lion, and she like hits the gate like this, and all of a sudden the lion jumps up, and it looks like he's about to attack her. Like it looks really scary. Like he jumps up, and then his hands just go right through the gates. Like, he have a really sharp eye, you know. It just went right through the gate and grabbed her, and everyone started freaking out in the zoo naturally. And then he started licking her, you know. 6 years later, I have that video. It was really amazing. So then, when I saw that video, my mind immediately went to the statement of nectar devotion. It is there even in a lion. I was like, wow, Srila Prabhupada really knows what he's talking about. So that is the life of consciousness, priti. It wants to express affection and it wants to receive it. Srila Prabhupada describes. So when we're children, our affection, first of all, is just for ourselves. As we get a little bit older, it extends to like maybe our brother. When we get a little bit older, it extends to our mother and father. When we get a little bit older, it might extend to our community, and then to our nation, and then to all of humanity, Prabhupada describes. But even when spreading to all of humanity, that love is not satisfied. Prabhupada describes like this. He says the loving tendency of the jiva expands like a vibration of light, or as air expands. But it goes on expanding and expanding and expanding, and dissatisfied until it reposes its love in Krishna. And only when that love is reposed in Krishna can everyone be happy. So that's to contribute to a cause by which everyone can be happy. So you might be able to save someone's life. Like suppose someone is drowning, right? Let's say they jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge and you didn't know that. And you saw them and they were drowning, they were dying. And you grabbed them from the ocean and pulled them out. So you saved their life, right? But the reason they jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge in the first place is because they were lifeless. Right? And they were feeling lifeless inside. They wanted to terminate their life. So just rescuing someone from the ocean doesn't save their life, right? You have to actually be able to give them life. And the only way you can give them life is by giving them love. And that too is qualified by love of Krishna. That is the life of the jiva. And without giving love of Krishna, then the jivas feel lifeless. And they become useless. They feel useless internally, and they go down. They begin to degrade. Right? Just like our society. Our society is a consciousness without priti, without Krishna prema, Krishna priti, like that. And what is happening to society, it goes down. Just like a body without consciousness, what happens to a body without consciousness? It deteriorates, right? And then now as it deteriorates, all these nasty things start coming to it, maggots and etc., and they eat away at the body. So similarly, a life without Krishna priti, or without Krishna consciousness, in other words, such a society or such an individual begins to degrade, and he goes down, he's destroyed. So the highest cause is to give one Krishna consciousness, in short. That is the best cause that anyone can contribute to. This is also discussed, I often mention this section of Srimad Bhagavatam in the 10th canto, when Parikshit Maharaj, he poses a question after the Brahma Vimohan Leela, that it is saying that all of Krishna's associates, the cowherd women and men, and the cows, when Krishna actually became their sons directly, when he expanded himself as the cowherd boys, that they showed more affection for their children, for Krishna, when Krishna was their son, than for their actual children. So that kind of bewildered Parikshit Maharaj. How is that possible? Because generally, the situation is my son is like, I mean, I like all the children here, no doubt, but my son's got a little special something to it, the special quality, the way his hair is, something, We always, that's a general tendency, the bodily identification of life is like that. What is that? Kalatri dishu, boma igidi, kalatra, what is that? Yasnatma buddhi kunapetru datuke? Swadi, kalatra dishu, boma igidi, right? My body and the body of my wife, my kids, they're very special. But it was saying that when Krishna took on the form of the cowherd boys and so on, they showed more enthusiasm and love for Krishna, who was their child, playing as their child at that time, than for their own children. So Parikshit Maharaj asks about this. This is mysterious. So to that, Shukadeva Goswami responds that actually you should know that it is a self that is most dear to everyone. And the dearness of other things is only due to the dearness of oneself. So that's a little counterintuitive because we say, well, what about the mother? She'll sacrifice everything for her child, isn't it? So that means that her child is more dear than her own self, than her own life, right? That's what it looks like, right? The mother, father, they will sacrifice everything for their kids, right? So that means that the kid's more dear, right? So then Shukadeva Goswami says, actually, no, that's not the case because they're having a false ego. This is my child, right? Because of that false ego, in other words, they sacrifice their life. In other words, if they didn't have the false ego that's my child, would they make the same sacrifice? So that means that sacrifice satisfies the egoistic conception of self, of my child. And therefore they make the sacrifice. Another example was given of a patriot. He sacrifices himself for the country. That means the country is more dear, right, than his own self. But actually it's because of his ego of being a patriot that he makes the sacrifice. But if he didn't have that ego, he wouldn't make the sacrifice, right? So that means ultimately even the sacrifice is done for the pleasure of that false ego. So it is certainly the self that is most dear. So when a person thinks himself to be the body, then things become dear when they have their relationship to the body, right? So most of us probably think we're the body. So we have things, right? Like a computer, for example. I like to give the example of a computer. So my computer is very dear to me because it has a relationship to my body. But Jagadananda Prabhu's computer is not dear to me because it doesn't have a relationship to my body. So if Jagadananda Prabhu comes in the temple one day, like, I can't find my computer, I feel pretty peaceful. I don't feel disturbed by it. I said, I'll pray to Krishna for you. I go and do my own activities. And I forget to pray also, like that. Now, but if my computer comes up missing, I'm like, did you see my computer? See, someone stole my computer, I need to change the lock. That's actually what happened. Like that, because it has a relationship to my body, right? So the dearness of other things are only due to the dearness of the body, actually. So it may think, I really love my computer. No, you don't. You love your body, actually. And because the computer has a relationship to your body, therefore the computer is dear to you. But if a person becomes a little bit advanced in his thinking, his consciousness, he realizes, I'm not this material body either. I'm a spiritual entity. So the body becomes dear only because it has a relationship to my soul, right? So my body is dear to me, but Jagadananda Prabhu's body is not as dear. I didn't say not dear, not as dear. If something were to happen to Jagadananda Prabhu's body, we would definitely pray, and whatever capacity we could, assist, definitely we would do that. But if something happens to my body with that false ego, it's really, really disturbed me. Like, I can't think of anything else, right? Just like something happens to Jagadananda Prabhu's body, I'll be thinking about that, but I'll probably be thinking about other things also. Because it's not as dear, but when something happens to my body, it takes over the whole consciousness, right? Because it has a relationship to my soul, right? So it's the soul that I'm trying to please, right? You understand that? So similarly, the soul's existence, taking it one step further, is dear only because of its relationship to Krishna. And without this relationship to Krishna, then even oneself becomes dissatisfying, right? Therefore, you see people committing suicide and all these things, right? They want to cease to exist because just like the computer is there because it gives pleasure to the body when I think I'm the body, or the body becomes dear because it gives pleasure to the self, the soul. So the soul becomes dear because it actually gives pleasure to Krishna constitutionally. So unless the soul connects to Krishna, then he has no life. Then, everything degrades. So there's a verse that Bhagavad Bhakti Hinasya Jati Shatrum Japas Tapas Apraneshava Dehasya Mangalam Lokam Ranjanam. That without Bhagavad Bhakti, then whatever we're doing, whatever we have, Jati, Shastram, education, high birth, your japa also, your tapa also. Without Bhagavad Bhakti, all those things are like decorations of a dead body. So everything we have in our society, without Bhagavad Bhakti, is simply another decoration of a dead body. And it's not a very nice decoration. It's looking really ugly nowadays, right? You ever travel around Chicago? It looks ugly. They think it's a decoration. Big skyscraper buildings, the iPhone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I don't know, 6, 7. They're coming out with more and more and more. They consider this to be decorations of society, indications of our advancement. But they're a decoration of a dead body only without Bhagavad Bhakti. So the highest contribution, para upakar, janma sataka kari kara para upakar, the highest contribution is to actually give Bhagavad Bhakti, or consciousness of Krishna, love of Krishna. That is the highest contribution that Mahaprabhu himself took up. Gaur Mahaprabhu's appearance is coming. The section in which this verse comes is a section where it's describing Lord Chaitanya as the tree of devotional service. It's a very nice description where Lord Chaitanya becomes the tree of devotional service, the gardener and the bestower and enjoyer of the fruits as well. So it's mentioned that the seed of devotional service, the seed of the tree of devotional service, first rose up in Madhavendra Puri. And that tree of devotional service was watered by the desire of Lord Chaitanya. And it went over to Ishwar Puri. And then later on, when Lord Chaitanya advented, that seed became the trunk of devotional service. And Lord Chaitanya was that trunk. And he had as the roots of the tree, the trunk, 9 sannyasis, Paramananda Puri, etc., 9 sannyasis. They became the roots. And then Lord Advaita Acharya and Lord Nityananda became the 2 main branches. And from those 2 main branches, so many other branches came. And they all were distributing love of Krishna, knowing that this is the actual benefit of the living. His real life is in connection to Krishna in love. So they gathered together to distribute those fruits. So in that section, Mahaprabhu begins to address all the members of the tree. There are many varieties of members of the tree, and they all had equal power in distributing Lord Chaitanya's gift of love to the world. Prabhupada says ISKCON is one such branch of the Chaitanya tree. And there are so many branches there. And they all were given equal empowerment to distribute the fruits of love of Krishna. So he begins to address them to help him distribute this love of Krishna to everyone. It would be nice to sing those shlokas, but everyone doesn't have here. They're this section I know very well. It's a very nice section. Anyway, we'll not do it now. But he addresses the members of the tree, please help me to distribute this fruit. So many fruits are here, how I alone can enjoy them. I need help. Prabhupada says, Lord Chaitanya was asking all levels of Krishna conscious persons to gather together and help him distribute these fruits of love of Krishna, para upakar, understanding that this is the only thing, the only panacea, prema panacea, you can say, the prema panacea project. That's the Krishna consciousness movement, the prema panacea project. This is the only panacea for all of humanity. So we need help. Lord Chaitanya said, I need help. I alone cannot do it. I'm just one person. He's saying like that because he wants to give us opportunity to ourselves, get that fruit, taste it, and distribute it, and see the bliss in distributing it also. Please help me. All adhikaris, Kanishta adhikaris, Madhyama adhikaris, Uttamara, you all gather together. Help me to distribute this fruit of Krishna consciousness to others. So, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada describes, how is that fruit distributed? Yeah, we need, but one computer is not enough. We need, everyone has to sing along, otherwise everyone's going, I'm singing, everyone's like, ooh, and they're not absorbed. If everyone had, then we could do it. Maybe we can do it later. It's really a sweet section. A lot of sweet sections are there. CC is full of sweetness, sugar. It's like sugar candy. Anyway, so how to distribute that fruit of love, which is the only necessity of the jiva, the real necessity of the jiva, the only necessity of the jiva, the indispensable necessity of the jiva, that is by the holy name of Krishna. So only the holy name of Krishna has the real power to bestow that fruit to the living entity. So Prabhupada says we have to beg from Lord Chaitanya the holy name of Krishna. We have to beg from him. So we think we're chanting Hare Krishna, right? Many of us think like that. But actually, we have to beg for that holy name, which can give this particular fruit. The fruit of infusing someone with Krishna consciousness. That is required. So, all of our preaching endeavors, we have so many wonderful preaching activities in the Krishna consciousness movement. The big temples, the awesome deity worship. The deity worship is kind of like no others. Of course, in the South India, that deity worship is pretty powerful. They probably offer like 64 items, No one in ISKCON would be able to tolerate that. I don't know, maybe Pankajangri, Janani Vas, but the rest of us, just to do that 25-minute arti, I'm telling you, it's not a joke. I'm sure you all get an experience. It's not a joke. And it's just, a few items. Imagine 64 items. But the deity worship in ISKCON, the deities are extremely attractive. Not that the deities in South India are not extremely, they're also extremely attractive. But in terms of tattva, Krishna's more attractive because it's filled with rasa that is not found in Narayana, like that. So the deity worship is awesome. Prasadam distribution, the book distribution. The devotees were just at Kumbh Mela. They distributed 150,000 books in 2 days or something. That's inconceivable. But all these preaching endeavors, and then Bhajra Narayan Prabhu came and showed us a nice video of so many wonderful activities going on all over the world in Krishna consciousness. But all these preaching endeavors are meant to draw the living entities to the holy name of Krishna. That is the actual purpose of the preaching endeavor, to draw the jivas to the holy name of Krishna, and to take that holy name of Krishna with faith and with divine conception. Because that faith and divine conception bestows the fruit of love for Krishna, without which the living entity is lifeless, as I've just described. So when we're preaching, we have the main duty of the preachers of the Krishna consciousness movement. Their main endeavor is to distribute the holy name of Krishna, that name which can give the real need of the soul, their connection with Krishna and love. That is the real need of the soul. Without it, pritir nayavan mayi vasudeve, namuchate deha yogena tava. Rishabdev was later on going to explain this point, that when a living entity does not have his connection with Lord Vasudeva in love, priti nayavan, they don't have it, then what? Namuchate deha yogena tava. They cannot be liberated from accepting material bodies one after another. They cannot be free because you need a force so strong that it will keep the consciousness from going towards matter. That's why the Namuchate Deha Yogena Tava, why they cannot get free from taking bodies one after the other. Because without a strong enough force to absorb the living entity, then his consciousness invariably remains fettered by matter. And the images of matter constantly coming up again and again in the mind, so it naturally gets a state like that. We just read from Bhagavad Gita, Yam Yam Bhapismanam Bhavam, Tya Jante Kalevram, Tatari Vaitu Konteya, Sadata Bhava Bhavita. Whatever the jiva is absorbed in, So if we're not attracted to the powerful magnet of Krishna, then the other magnet of the material nature captures our consciousness. We take one body after another. So Priti is the only force that can keep us fixed on Krishna, and then we go to Krishna. How do you get that Priti? That's by the holy name of Krishna primarily. And all other support systems are there in order to help us come to the point of chanting Hare Krishna with purity. There's a verse like that also. Bhajanera madhya sheshtra navavidha bhakti Krishna prema Krishna dite dare mahashakti. Of all forms of worship of Krishna, bhajan, the navavidha bhakti, the 9 forms of devotional service, are considered superlative. For what purpose? Krishna prema Krishna dite dare mahashakti. For the purpose of getting Krishna prema, and then after that getting Krishna. Dare mahashakti, they have great power to bestow these 2 things, Priti and then Krishna. But of these 9, Taramadhye Sarvashishtra Nama Sankirtan Nir Aparade Nam Lile Paya Premadan. Of these 9, the most powerful, Sarvashreshta, this word Shreshta is used here, also, having superlative qualities, is the Nam Sankirtan, taken without offense. Taken without offense, that will bestow love of Krishna, the real need of the soul. So, as preachers of the Krishna, so we're Janma Sattaka Kari Kara Para Upakar. We're supposed to be making our lives successful and then helping others become successful. That means ourselves getting attracted to the holy name of Krishna and being able to distribute that also. Yare deke tare kaha Krishna upadesh. Amara agaya guruhan tare edesh. Right, Mahaprabhu says, whoever you see, whoever you meet, give them the Krishna upadesh. That means Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada usually, when he speaks about preaching, he means preaching the principles of Bhagavad Gita. That's what he's Bhagavad Gita. That's what he's Bhagavad Gita. That's what if you read his books, he says it so many times. Why we have to, whoever see, whatever, give them Krishna Upadesh? Why are we giving Krishna? Because they require Krishna Upadesh so they can take the name of Krishna with faith and with the proper conception. Otherwise, they have kirtan, like so much kirtan becoming so popular, but they have no faith in Krishna. They don't even think Krishna is real. They think Krishna is just like a concept to help me deal with my earthly problems, right? And, come and they just want to enjoy the name of Krishna, not knowing that Krishna is beyond the, how you say? Catch? I'm using the grasp, beyond the grasp of the material senses. What is that? Tashi Krishna Namandi Namavegraham Indriyai. Not knowing that they think they're chanting the name of Krishna, but because they have no faith and they have no proper spiritual conception, the name of Krishna remains far away from them. So Lord Chaitanya has requested everyone in the Parampara to become a guru. Don't start going like this. Okay, there it is, the order. I was waiting for that one. I was waiting for that order to come. I'm already ready. I was just waiting for the order to come. Everyone is guru in their own right, like we were hearing yesterday. We need gurus on many different levels. We need achar on many different levels. Then guru doesn't just mean become diksha guru. It means become exemplary, both in action and speech, like that we were hearing yesterday, like this. Become guru. Everyone become guru and give them the Krishna Upadesh. Whoever you see, whoever tell you should give them the Krishna Upadesh. Why? Bhagavad Gita. Why you have to speak Bhagavad Gita? So they will take the name of Krishna with faith and with the proper conception, which will lead to the development of priti, which is the real need of the soul. That's called as para upakara. If we ourselves and others don't get attracted to the name of Krishna with surrender and with divine conception, divya jnana, then that priti may be far away from us. And we may find that although, like yesterday, the question came up, that we're doing the activities of devotional service, they don't bring any happiness to us. Of course, we're neophytes, don't think it's going to come overnight, by the way. It is actually a process. But we should know, there's a verse by Rupa Goswami, quoted in the Ramananda Roy section, where it says, just when a person is hungry, then the various eatables give him great pleasure, right? And the implicit statement is if a person isn't hungry, you put him in front of a huge feast, and he's peaceful. Of course, don't bring the cheesecake, right? Then, there's always room for sweets, right? But if there's, otherwise, if he's already eaten, he's peaceful. So in the same way, the activities of devotional service will bring one pleasure when those activities are taken with faith and with love. That's what the verse says. I don't remember the verse. I should learn it. It's a good verse to learn. So we may be taking the activities of Krishna consciousness but not feeling nourished by them if devoid of faith. Sharanagati, the symptom of faith is self-giving and surrender. That's the symptom of faith. That is mentioned by all our acharyas. That is the symptom of faith is Sharanagati. Bhakatera Pran, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, this is the life of a devotee is Sharanagati. Like that. That gives, taking the name of Krishna with faith, with the proper spiritual conception of Krishna, Sambandha, Abhideya, like that, Prayojan. Then that gives love for Krishna. Then we go to Krishna. Like that. That is para upakar. That is a real distribution. So we should be clear about that ourselves. We ourselves have to become attracted to the Nam Rupa Guna Lila of Krishna. And we have to also distribute that attraction to others. Then we give them life. Not just saving life. To pull someone out of bad activities, you just saved their life. But now that they're here, you have to further give them life more. Right? You save someone from the ocean. You've saved their life, but now they're on the boat, and they're all rascals. They're going to cause trouble for you, right? So you have to be able to give life also, the proper life. So we're working hard to bring people to the lotus feet of Krishna. After that, furthermore, we have to give them life, the life of chanting Hare Krishna with faith and with love, like that, with spiritual understanding. That is called as para upakar. It may be upakar, you're doing some preaching, but para upakar, topmost spiritual, preaching, like the para dharma, right? What is the para? There's so many dharmas there, but what is the para dharma, right? The supremost dharma. So similarly, upakar, we maybe do so much upakar that is not, we have to do para upakar also. The para upakar is not feeding people and clothing them and sheltering them, Prabhupada has taught us like that. That it may be an auxiliary activity to attract them to the real thing of the holy name of Krishna, taken with faith and love. Like that. So Bharata Maharaj, he's also given us this principle of sanimite varam tyago vinashe niyate sati. Risking even one's life for a higher cause. Bharata Maharaj is a good example of this also. Because in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita it's mentioned that just to show the danger of practicing spiritual life without sangha of devotees, Bharata Maharaj used his own life as an example. That's pretty interesting. He risked his own life to set up the example that in Krishna consciousness, no matter how advanced you become, because he was pretty advanced, no matter how advanced you become, you need to have the association of sadhus. That is the protection as we're moving forward in the development of our life, the life of our life, Krishna. As we're moving towards the life of our life, manifesting it, the sangha of devotees is absolutely essential. So like this, Bharata Maharaj is glorified. Bharata Bhumi is glorified. And Prabhupada does say at the end of this purport, Bharata Bhumi Tehaya Manushya, the whole planet really is Bharata. All men are actually being requested to come. And luckily, because the Indians are looking west and the Westerners are looking east, Prabhupada said like that. So it is not uncommon to find that the Westerners are preaching to a lot of the Indians to get them to say, hey, India's a good place also. Wonderful place. The supreme wealth is there. Like that. Okay, anyone wants to ask anything or clarify any points? Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Purity is the force. I wanted to know if you could just say anything that maybe we don't know on that. There's some basic things Prabhupada says, but I wanted to know what you would suggest for purity in preaching.
Purity in preaching. Always remembering that we're servants of Guru and Prabhupada. That is very hard. especially if you think you're making some good points in the class or something like that, then you easily forget Guru and Krishna and think, oh, I am so, wow, I don't know where that inspiration came from, super soul. And Guru is left far away, Prabhupada is left far away, and then after some time, Krishna is left far away. I mean, I'm an avatar, like that. The last snare of Maya, I think I'm an avatar. So always remembering that we're, how you say, pygmies in front of our Guru. Like Mahaprabhu said, I'm a great fool. The sannyasi said, why are you not studying Vedanta? You're a sannyasi. He said, my spiritual master said I'm a great fool. I'm not qualified to study Vedanta. So he told me to chant Hare Krishna, I'm chanting Hare Krishna. That is purity. Another example of the South Indian Brahmin getting the instruction to read Gita. He was illiterate, but the instruction came. We would say, Guru Maharaj, this is very impractical. I don't know how to read also, give me something practical to do. But he just took up that service of his Guru Maharaj. Yeah, I told him to read every day. He was reading every day. Sometimes he would read it the right way, sometimes he wouldn't read it the right way. But his eyes were always decorated with tears. So the other South Indian Brahmins, they were making fun of him, like, this guy's just a lost cause. Mahaprabhu was very attracted to him. And he came asking, why are your eyes always decorated with tears? I have this instruction to read Gita, but I don't know how to read also, I'm illiterate. Mahaprabhu said, why are your eyes decorated with tears then? If you don't know the message, you're not understanding how you can be so impacted. Because when I see that Krishna has become the chariot driver of Arjuna, even though Arjuna is his devotee, I'm just overwhelmed by emotion, and Mahaprabhu said, you have understood. So like that, purity it's not such an easy thing also. This is always a good barometer. How much we are remembering whom we are serving while the activity is going on. It's a real challenge. It's a real challenge, especially after you become quote-unquote qualified, right? In the beginning, it was easy to remember that, man, I'm a mercy case, no doubt. But after we become, so-called qualified, I know how to do everything. I know how to speak, I know how to cook, I know how to do this. And we forget that we're mercy cases like that. So that's the answer. Yeah.
Thank you for your class, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. I was thinking, I have two questions. The first question is of the living entity. He has no experience of prema, or priti, or love, but he does have a lot of experience with fruitive activities and then receiving the results of his fruitive activities. So when we're chanting, I'm trying to understand how do we approach our chanting when we don't have experience of like priti, but very strong desires for receiving some results from our chanting? That's the first question.
Just chanting, like that. As science says, right? First thing is just chant. And we're chanting with the with our little surrender we have. Like, surrender is the indication of faith. So we were told to chant 16 rounds. So we're chanting 16 rounds. Follow the 4 regular principles. We're following the 4 regular principles. Eat only prasadam. Hopefully we're doing that. Read these books so many hours a day. We're doing that. Please hear and chant every day. We're doing that. In other words, when you're following, that is an indication of surrender. It's not maybe surrender in, a very perfected state, however we're thinking that to be. But that's like simple surrender. And we don't like it. That's good. Actually, it's a really good indication. I don't even want to do this, but I'm doing it. I'm becoming a little bit more surrendered. That's a positive sign. Man, I hate this, but I'm doing it, Of course, we like to do it when whatever comes. That's all nice and dandy, but generally we're not going to be there in the outset. So that means we're chanting with faith. That's the beginning. Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. Why did Mahaprabhu say Param Vijayate? He wanted to inspire faith and the efficacy of the process of Nam Sankirtan. So we're following Krishna, Srila Prabhupada's program, the program given to us by our Guru. So we have taken the name with faith. That is the beginning. And by hearing the classes every day, Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtana Hridiyanta Sto Hi Abhadrani, the misconceptions are going, Abhadrani slowly. So we're well on our way. So we need not be, I have no experience of love and all that, don't worry about it, I'm here, if I'm at this stage and I'm following the principles meant for myself at that particular level, that's a really good sign. That's a really good sign. Oh, but why? It's just like if you're in the second grade and you're crying like, why am I not in the fifth grade like so-and-so? No, you'll get there also. First of all, you finish second grade level first. Then you go to the third, and the fourth grade, and the fifth grade, and then you're saying, but he's already in the seventh grade. You'll get there also, but you got to complete, second grade, third grade, like that. So we're following our second grade principles. See, the nice thing about spiritual life is that the second grade principles exist on the top platform also. They just exist in a deeper way, that's all. So it's not like the principles, like, okay, now that goes away, I'm at the next level. And I go, okay, oh, you on that level? Yeah, I used to be on that level. No, the same principles are existing throughout the whole process. But it's just a deeper realization. Just like sometimes Prabhupada would tell the devotees, you're already liberated, you just don't know it. Right? Because they're living a life of liberated soul. They're Mahatmas because they're living a life of a Mahatma, although in consciousness it may not be fully there yet. So we're taking the principles at the level of consciousness we're at. That's a really good sign. I'm at this level, I'm following at that level. My nartas are coming out, that's great. If you didn't see any nartas, then it's really concerned. It means the process is not working. You take up the process, you didn't see any nartas coming up. Either you'll think, wow, I must be super pure, and now it's super blind. You don't see. So many nartas are coming up. There's a positive sign. I didn't even know that one was there. Oh, this one is coming up. Man, I messed up. Okay, so let me keep chanting. Let me keep hearing like that. That is self is a life of love. It's the seed of love. And the mango seed and the mango tree is the same.
Ask my second question.
Okay.
You were explaining how things are dear to us based on our self-conception. So because I think I'm this body, things related to this body are very dear to me. That made a lot of sense. Then you were explaining that because I think I'm the soul, the body becomes very dear to the soul. And that confused me because I thought that when we realize we're the soul, we become aloof from the body. And we don't, whatever happens to the body happens unconnected to Krishna.
Yeah, that's in a state of full self-realization. Actually, the example that is given in this section of the Bhagavatam is a person who's about to leave his body, who's not self-realized, but he can begin to understand that he's different from his body because he doesn't want to die. So he's starting to realize that there's something more to him than just his body, and he's afraid. That's actually the example that's given to describe that particular element. So it's not self-realization, it's, I don't want to lose my body. And then he starts to get the idea, maybe I'm not my body because I'm so afraid of losing my body, but maybe I'm different from the body like that. That's the example that's given in that section, the 14th chapter. So not self-realization. Of course, if you're self-realized, you may be a little detached. Or in the beginning, just like we have spiritual idea, conception, Krishna speaks about this in 328, the Tattvavit. He knows that he's a spiritual entity, and he knows how he's captured by the material concept of life. Right? So that, I think many of us could probably relate to. I understand I'm a spiritual entity, Tattvavit. This is what the Tattvavit means. He understands, I'm a soul, but I'm captured by the material conception of life. So with that type of person, I can understand, my body is bringing me pleasure because I'm the soul, and I like this body because it's actually dear to my, it's bringing me, the soul, pleasure, like that. That's, of course, conditioned consciousness. And then, elevated, he'll be detached like that. That's a different thing. Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, you. Yeah, it's like 1 minute left.
Hi, Krishna. I was just confused when you mentioned that we should chant Krishna's name, like holy names, with proper faith and conception. So, like when some newcomers come, we encourage them to chant, but they don't know anything about Krishna. And as you mentioned that there are so many people who are doing kirtans, but they don't have any conception about Krishna, so Preeti is so far from them because they don't have understanding. So is it more important to first understand? And
No, chant. That's the most important thing. Just go on chanting. Shrimvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shavanan Kirtana. They accumulate punya just by chanting. Actually, you need to be pious to understand the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. Therefore, when we're sitting in class, oftentimes we realize that I didn't get anything out of that class. In fact, we were talking the other day how we would feel convinced about things, but we realized that we didn't even understand the subject matter. Like we would read Prabhupada's books, and it was like, yeah, that makes sense. And if someone was to ask us what it was about, we couldn't tell them even one point, because there wasn't sufficient piety, or let's say purity, purity in the heart to like get clarification. It was still quite ambiguous. Even Ankit Gupta shared the experience that I had also. How I'm reading Gita and everything seems quite random. This is my first experience in reading Bhagavad Gita. I was like, man, this is totally random. And then Arjuna asked a question. I'm like, that doesn't even have anything to do with Krishna's talking about. And then Krishna would give an answer, and the answer had nothing to do with the question. That's what it seemed like. Everything just seemed really. But as you got purified through chanting, and we'll say chanting, hearing, going on hearing, chanting, then all of a sudden the ambiguity went down. Oh, this is actually there's like a structure going on here. You start to see it, and then you get Burijan's Surrender Unto Me book, and you see, oh, it's actually like a real structure is here. It's a very methodical presentation. Like that. So going chanting, everyone should chant Hare Krishna just to increase the purity or the piety that will allow them to understand the subject matter further. And then, yes, our point is that only. So many groups are doing the chanting, but the chanting done by the devotees is different from those other groups because it's done with the proper faith and the proper understanding of Krishna. So then to be merciful to people is not just to engage them in chanting. That's the first level of mercy, you can say. Bring them in, somehow or other. And even if you have to do something you make it a kirtan night at the Chicago temple, and when they think of kirtan night, they think of what they were doing in the sense gratification world. So you take advantage of that, and kirtan, and they come to the temple for, kirtan. Many of them will come, sometimes they may come without the proper clothes. We might need to keep something aside, you can wrap this around then. Because the kirtan for them meant all those things, a very central presentation. Men and women alike, you keep something aside on each side. Okay, you can put this on it. I say that because in the Swaminarayan temple, they actually do like that. You can't just walk into the temple wearing anything, Like in Chicago, they do, you can wear anything. Sometimes we have seen people not properly dressed for a temple. In the Swaminarayan temple, if you walk in like that, they'll stop you and say, you have to put this on. Like that. They're really strict. They're like super strict, Anyway, so we might have to do, if it gets a little bit out of hand, you say, okay, you can throw this on. And then they get attracted to the devotees. And we don't preach much to them. We let them enjoy the kirtan. They think they're enjoying the sound vibration. Let them enjoy the prasadam. Let them enjoy the friendship that they're making with devotees. And after they become, you can perceive that their receptivity is increasing through the fact that they're chanting and associating with devotees. Then you start to give the Krishna Upadesh. Hey, come to a Bhagavad Gita class, or here's a Bhakti Vriksha class. Then they come there and they hear the right conceptions. Through hearing the right conceptions, they get faith. And then their chanting becomes something substantial that leads them to love of Krishna, the real necessity of the soul. Like that. So devotees have to be, intelligent like that. So, everyone. But the main thing is just chant. Otherwise, there's no hope. There's no hope. You see how degraded things are? Practically speaking, no hope for anyone. It's really amazing that anyone will take a book. You're out on Belmont and Clark. That's like the hub of sinful activity in Chicago, Just like Naimisharanya was the hub of the universe, the center of so the hub of sinful activity in Chicago was Belmont and Clark, A very horrible place. And devotees are out there, and that's the best place to distribute books. According to Madhukari Prabhu, the best place he's seen in all of USA is Belmont and Clark. What? How do people in Belmont and Clark even take the books? That's quite mysterious. In fact, we were joking about this in my book distribution days. We would have this experience that people would be walking past us in the airport, and we would stop them and call them over, and then we would distribute a book to them, and then they would walk back the other way. They were actually walking past us. That was like their original intention, so it seemed. And then we kind of like intervened in their life, and then they got a book, they went back the other way. And we used to joke, they came over here just to get the book, How did they get the book? They're having so much darkness is there in the mind. How did they even take it? And Revajnananda Prabhu used to tell us, he said, whatever you do, make sure they hold the book. He said, make sure they hold it, because he said, this is maybe a new thing you may have heard. I know you heard that book, hold the book point. Well, this is Revajnananda Prabhu's realization. When they touch the book, they come under the influence of Yoga Maya. and therefore, even though ordinarily they would never in a million years take the book, by touching the book, the Yoga Maya potency starts working on them. And then all of a sudden they don't even know what's happening, Okay, hold on. pulling out the $20, here you go, and they, okay, thank you very much. And then after they come out of the influence of the Yoga Maya energy, they look at, what happened? I didn't want this book, and then they turn around and the devotees are gone. we haven't had an experience like that, in fact. Anyway, so that is the power of just chanting, doing the activities of Krishna consciousness. Somehow or other that people just contact Krishna. Who cares if they have right conceptions, this, that? Let them contact Krishna. But this is a Srimad Bhagavatam class. So in the Bhagavatam class, it is expected that those who attend are wanting to understand deeper principles by which they can take their same activities they're doing in a deeper way. So we speak about those principles here. But it's not like we should apply the things that we hear here exactly on the newbie. All right, you need to chant with faith, otherwise just don't chant, Come in the Bhagavad Gita class, get that faith first, then you can... No, this is for us. We're trying to nourish our own understanding and attraction to the goal of life. So then we're speaking about those things here. And with newbies, just let them touch. Somehow let them come in contact with Krishna. Krishna lunch, kirtan, program, whatever it may be, somehow or other, right? That's the principle. What is that? Yena Kena Prakarena? Krishna, what is that? Nishevaya? Mana Krishna Nishevaya. Somehow or other let them contact Krishna. Even a little bit of contact can have profound impact later on. Like that. That's our understanding. Okay, so thank you all for tolerating my discussion. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.